Welcome to episode 7 of Black is Evil and White is Good. It's another perspective with I, the mystic philosopher. And yes, my melanin people, it's high time for reasoning. Here in episode 7, my focus will be on self-preservation and its relationship to race and posterity. So from all that has been said thus far, we may all agree that the first law of nature, also known as the law of self-preservation, or to preserve one's existence, means to act in order to preserve one's own system of sustenance. This includes our food, or our foods, our water, our fresh air, the herbs, activities, etc. As the natural native earthly humans, the Earth's organic humans, the Earth's highly enriched melanin, the Earth's highly enriched carbon skin humans of African ancestry, if we do not take action, or if we are not taking the necessary actions to preserve natural foods from being re-engineered, genetically modified, scientifically and synthetically laced, if we are not taking the necessary actions to preserve our natural water from pollution, our air from potential dangerous system-made chemicals and biological agents, and if we are not taking actions to preserve our herbs that are to provide and to be the source of our healing, then we are doomed. Let me now briefly look at some of the things that the Caucasians, the Caucasoid race of people know, practice religiously, and understand that we, the highly melanin people of Africans, or we, the highly melanin people or Africans, do not know, do not practice, let alone practice religiously, that we do not understand, or might not even take, or we might just even take it for granted, or simply we just don't care. As I have mentioned before, that from my perspective, there is no other race or races of people, human beings or humankind, that are currently dwelling on this our planet Earth today that believes, that knows, that understands, that practices the art, the science, and the principles of self-preservation to the nth degree and beyond, like the Caucasian race or the Caucasian group of people. I also mentioned that from my perspective, consciously or unconsciously, anything and everything they say and everything and anything they do is at its core based on the fundamental principles and the practice of self-preservation, which I've already explained is the first law of nature. Now, unlike some, if not quite possible, most of my fellow highly enriched melaninated people of African ancestry, the Caucasian race, and especially their true leaders among them, know and understand that in order to preserve their existence, it means that they have to constantly act in order to preserve their own community. The Caucasian race, and especially their true leaders among them, know and understand that in order to preserve their own existence, it means that they have to constantly act in order to preserve their own society. The Caucasian race, and especially their true leaders among them, know and understand that in order to preserve their existence, it means that they have to constantly act and take all necessary actions and precaution in order to preserve their own country and their own lands, regardless of how they got it or regardless of how they came by it. The Caucasian race, and especially their true leaders among them, know and understand that in order to preserve their existence, it means that they have to constantly act and take all necessary actions and precautions in order to preserve their own government, which is also known as their own legal system. The Caucasian race, and especially their true leaders among them, know and understand that in order to preserve their existence, it means that they have to constantly act in order to preserve their own religions, their own culture and tradition. The Caucasian race, and especially their true leaders among them, know and understand that in order to preserve their own existence, it means that they have to constantly act in order to preserve their own language and languages. And yes, the Caucasian race, and especially their true leaders among them, know and understand the true meanings and definition of the word race and posterity. And above all, they know and understand that in order to preserve their own existence, it means that they have to constantly act and take all necessary actions and precautions in order to preserve their own race and posterity. And I could go on and on and on. And of course, what they know and understand, regrettably, most of my people, melaninated people of African ancestry, take for granted. It is alleged that an ancient Israelite prophet, while predicting the downfall and potential total destruction and extermination of his Israelite race of people, once said, and I quote, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." Well, from my perspective, because of my own people, my highly enriched melanin people of African ancestry, gross ignorance of the first law of our source and mother nature, coupled with our chronic negligence and complacency by not acting in order to preserve our own race and our own posterity, our highly melanin race of African ancestry are dying a very slow but also a very sure death. We have become like sheep that are just joyfully being led to the slaughter. In other words, because of our own negligence and complacency, we are contributing to our own extermination, to our own extinction, by simply neglecting the first law of our mother and source, our mother nature. For example, even a fool that is not yet 100% completely brain dead, or one that is not yet 100% completely hypnotized and under the black spell of the Caucasian system's hypnotic trance, should know and will agree that in accordance to the first law of Mother Nature, and in order for his or her own race, his or her own seeds, and his or her posterity to be preserved, he or she must first cooperate with and cohabit with and establish a family with his or her own fellow highly enriched African brother or African sister, African man or African woman, and any and all other forms of alternative arrangements, cross-pollination, inter-cohabiting, you name it, whether it is for love, sex, social and political power, or money, is and can only produce a byproduct or a biracial or a heterozygous that is neither 100% of one or the other of the original. The fact is, you can and you may create more races and diversities or diversity, but you have not and you cannot preserve originality. And from my perspective, only a person that is truly black, one that is truly a fool, or one that is intellectually dishonest, that would think, teach, and believe otherwise. The evidence will show, and evidence has shown, that a lot, if not most, of our well-deserved, highly enriched melanin women, our sisters and our daughters of African ancestry, are today being rejected, totally disrespected, ill-treated, mentally and physically and otherwise assaulted and abused, cast aside, completely ignored, and sidelined more than ever before by some of us, and possible by most of us, the highly enriched melanin men of African ancestry. Today, most of our well-deserved and very productive, highly enriched melanin women, our sisters, our mothers, our daughters, are being left single and to live a life of singleness. Some are being left with children and without children to make it on their own or to make it by themselves, and having to either hopelessly comfort and pleasure themselves annually, or to pleasure themselves with the Caucaside capitalistic systems invented, created robotic sex toys, while they watch, or they helplessly watched, their own highly enriched and highly gifted melanin brothers and sisters, or highly enriched brothers, in trance, in transit, in transition, in transformation, being transformed into becoming something or someone other than mentally, physically, and spiritually strong African males. Transmigrating and foolishly, carelessly, and shamelessly pleasuring and delighting the seeds and daughters of our honorable ancestors' most vicious and malevolent enemies and foes. Foolishly, carelessly, and shamelessly pleasuring and delighting the seeds and daughters of those who gave our honorable ancestors nothing but pain and agony. Foolishly, carelessly, and shamelessly pleasuring and delighting the seeds and daughters of our honorable ancestors, conquerors, slave traders, slave masters, oppressors, murderers, lynchers, and persecutors, you name them. While many of our more than worthy sisters have to watch as their brothers reject them to go sowing their seeds to other races other than themselves and into other garden other than their own, thereby immigrating into I don't know what or I don't know who. Those from among us are those from among our African people that are guilty of violating the first law of our Mother Nature, also known as the Law of Self-Preservation, whether in ignorance or otherwise, are some of those that I call black, the black ones. They are indeed truly black men and truly black women from among us, the highly enriched melanin people of African ancestry. The evidence has shown and continues to show that as soon as some of, if not most of, our melanin people of African ancestry become schooled, educated, trained, etc. by the system, and especially when they have been trained at what is called the tertiary level education, and receive the system's honor of acceptance, of now being qualified. As soon as they start earning the system's money at some of the system's so-called high-paying jobs, and as soon as they begin to experience and enjoy some of the system's pleasure, the system's open doors, then they all seems to totally lose their mind. And sooner or later, they start abandoning their roots and unshamingly gravitate towards the system's own by taking on and marrying the system's males and females. And this is even more prevalent with our melanin males. And the question many are asking is, why is this happening? Why are so many of our young, healthy, talented, gifted, educated, and sometimes rich or high income earners, both males and females, but primarily our African males, why are they abandoning their own African race and culture for one that is both alien and oppressive to them, for one that scorn and despise them? Why are they rejecting, and in some cases proudly and publicly humiliating their own African race by speaking ill and putting down their own melanin sisters, mothers and daughters, their fathers, brothers and sons, etc., while putting our oppressors, females and males, on pedestals as if worshipping them, serving and doing things for them in the most degrading, slavish and submissive way that they would not even dream of or dare to do for their own African men or African women. Where are those of our melanin African males unreservedly doing all these things for the females of other men's race or other men's races, and for other women that truly belongs to men of other race or other races? And also, why are these of our melanin, our African women, unreservedly doing these things for the men of other races and for the men that truly belong to the women of other races men? Why are they doing this for the race, and in some direct instances the known heirs and successors of our African ancestors, slave traders, slave drivers, slave masters, oppressors, persecutors and colonizers, and the race that see them as black, name them black, call them the black, and even today still treat them as black? These are questions that are being asked. Well, from my perspective, the answer is briefly summarized like this. The Caucasoid system, or the Caucasian system, also known as the legal system, the Western system of government, Western democracy, etc., from its inception was founded, established, and has been perpetuating upon the alien, evil, false, deceptive, and erroneous ideology called racial superiority. And racial superiority that is primarily based on the pale skin complexion and geographical origins, on their pale skin complexion and their geographical origins. The Caucasian founders of the Caucasian systems, the legal system, thought and believe then and now that they are a superior race of humans on our planet Earth. And so they falsely and deceptively called, named, and labeled themselves white, the white race, the pure race, the perfect and undefiled race of humans, to be precise. They thought and believed then and now that all other races of humans were and are inferior to them. And I challenge them, if that's not true, then stop lying by calling themselves white and calling us black. They, meaning the Caucasian system founders and architects, and by extension their seeds, descendants, heirs, and successors today, taught and believed in accordance to what is written in their holy book called the Holy Bible, that their Caucasian God has created them to be superior and for them to rule at their pleasure and to have dominance over all other. And I quote, "Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." Unquote. That's Genesis 1 verse 26. And quote from their New International Version, the NIV Version Bible. Then they even thought, believed, and propagate their evil ideology that we, the Earth's organic and highly melaninated humans of African ancestry, were, and that we are monsters, that we are savages, wild beasts, that we are based animals, subhumans, or subhuman species, and that we are black. And for your information, all of these description and these are enveloped in the word black. Consequently, all actions were taken to preserve their Caucasoid race from being polluted, from being corrupted, and thus the false teachings, beliefs, and ideologies of them being a superior race, and their false, deceptive, devilish, and erroneous ideology of white supremacy was passed on and handed down to their offspring, to their seeds, to their heirs and successors, and to their current generation. So by falsely and deceptively claiming that they are white, white meaning they are superior, and of a superior intelligence, superior greatness, etc., that they represent everything that is good, and that everything good and praiseworthy belongs to them and comes from them. By claiming that their God is white, by building and establishing their Caucasian system, also known as their legal system of government, their educational system, you name them, and by intentionally, covertly, maliciously, and strategically inculcating the minds of almost all, if not all, the peoples of the earth with their devil's philosophies, some of, and possibly most of, our highly melanin people, and especially many, if not most, all of those that have been to and through the system's higher educational institutions, have fallen victims to their masters' lies, deceptions, and indoctrination, to the point that they will physically fight, harm, or even kill you, their own melanin brothers and sisters, for telling them that they are not black, and that the woman or the man that they know cherishes is not at all white. From my perspective, it is because of this, the devil's deceptions, the devil's brainwashing and brain staining, among many other things, of course, that so many of our melanin men and melanin women are believing, acting, and saying to people like myself that they have stepped up in life, that they have stepped up in life, that they have climbed the ladder of success, or that they are progressing in life if or when they are with a Caucasian female, that they, in their gross ignorance and deception and stupidity, honestly believe is white. And that is why most and possibly all of the aforementioned melanin men and women of African ancestry that have been and are being deceived have gravitated towards them, and are today gravitating towards them, are gravitating towards what they now come to believe as white and delight and their delight. And from my perspective, this offers further proof that the Caucasian system is designed and established upon the fundamental principles of self-preservation. Self-preservation meaning it was designed, established, and today being maintained for the preservation of the Caucasian race by perpetuating the deception of white supremacy, and that all races should and must look to them, delight.